Thank you so much. Thank you, Paibi, for coming
Thank
today.
you. Nice seeing
Really honoured to be in the same room with such bright, young, inspiring minds. My fellow peers, thank you so much. This is part of our initiative, Common Sense at Awani, and this is far more than just our initiative, our KPI. This is really just my also genuine and our genuine effort to really reach out to young people. We try to give more and more room for young people in mainstream media. It's really important to hear our voices, and I think it's important. Before we look ahead, we must look back. And we must be able to look back and admit to ourselves, have we done enough? Cukup tak apa yang kita buat? Have we done good enough? Did it work, whatever we did in the past? So, before we open the floor to any questions from you guys, obviously I'm sure you have plenty to ask, tapi I would like to ask the first question to you. Kita nak look in the past year, budget 2021. Have we done enough? Do you, in your own opinion, think kerajaan dah buat yang secukupnya untuk anak muda in the past year? This is an unprecedented time as well.
Thank you, Naila. I think answer, you have to look at it objectively lah. We've done a lot, yes, but can we do more? Also yes, right? Kerana situasinya selalu amat dynamic. Situation is changing. Masa kita buat Lanjawan 2021 pada masa itu, we thought 2021 will be a recovery year. Masa tu ingat tak bulan Disember, Lintas Negeri dibenarkan, ramai yang pergi menyambut tahun baru di Langkawi, di pulau-pulau lain. Ramai yang travelling. Then suddenly come the second wave, then the third wave. Jadi we were in a situation where as government, we have to plan for the unexpected, right? And to plan for something that is unexpected is not easy. Kerana memanglah, like you said, looking at the past senang, because you have with the benefit of hindsight, everything is perfect lah. Kalau in terms of what you want to do, tapi go looking forward, it's not easy. Jadi kita kena mestilah dynamic dari segi approach kita, dan apa-apa plan pun yang kita rancangkan mestilah bersifat dynamic, di mana if there is a need to change, at that time you need to change, and the change has to be fast. Jadi itulah salah satu situasi sebagai one of the policy makers dalam merancang inisiatif dan package bantuan. We've done a lot, but more can be done, dan kita harap dengan sesi seperti ini kita dapat mendengar sendiri apa yang kita boleh buat more untuk rakyat dan juga for all the different segments lah. We want to do mass customization lah, because when we talk to the belia, what are the challenges? When we talk to the SME, apakah challenges? We talk to the OKU, we talk to different group, there are different cabaran. Kerana recovery ni we have to admit, recovery ni will be unequal, right? Setengah sektor akan buka lagi cepat, setengah sektor akan pulih lebih cepat daripada yang lain. Jadi it is trying to narrow the gap during this recovery period.
So kalau kita nak gerak ke hadapan, looking forward, for me, the way I see it, mungkin something yang lain sikit, especially with what we've seen in Rancangan Malaysia ke-12, RMK-12, is this concept of keluarga Malaysia. So I think, given that we're in a room dengan ramai anak muda, I think I can say for certain that the way young people see keluarga Malaysia and the way the slightly older generation, no offense, the way we see...
You're talking about the older one?
Yeah, not you, definitely. The other ones, not you, for sure. Kita sama kan? No, for sure not. But yeah, the way I think we see keluarga Malaysia is very different. In budget 2022, how far is this concept of keluarga Malaysia going to be?
Yeah. Keluarga Malaysia itu sebenarnya was delivered during Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri punya ucapan sulung dia, maiden speech. So of course Rancangan Malaysia ke-12 juga sentuh mengenai apakah yang dimaksudkan dengan keluarga Malaysia. Jadi apabila kita cuba menghayati artinya keluarga Malaysia dalam konteks sekarang ni, if we look at apakah yang boleh dimasukkan ke dalam bajet 2022, it's about inclusivity lah. It's about inclusive. Rancangan Malaysia ke-12 pun is about inclusive, di mana kalau kita mahu semua rakyat Malaysia, tidak kira latar belakang, dapat menikmati apa yang negara kita dapat memberi. So what we can, as a nation, we need to be more inclusive in our approach. Of course, inclusive means you need to engage. Jadi bila dari segi engage, sesi lebih urus seperti ini adalah amat penting untuk kita mendengar sendiri. Apa yang lebih penting macam rancangan Malaysia ke-12 ni ada menyebut ekonomi kita akan berkembang lebih kurang 4.5 hingga 5.5% pada next 5 years. We looking at negara kita menjadi negara berpendapatan tinggi di mana gaji akan tersentuh 10,000 sebulan sampai tahun 2025. Tapi semua ni adalah perancangan yang bagus. Kalau kita nampak rancangan Malaysia ke-12, perancangannya is quite good, is very holistic, is whole approach, and that's really reflects keluarga Malaysia. But more importantly sebenarnya ialah the execution ataupun pelaksanaan. Semua rancangan ni kalau pelaksanaannya tidak complete atau tidak not good, dia ini hanya sekadar rancangannya lah. Yeah. Because any success is 1% planning, 99% sebenarnya ialah about execution. Jadi di sinilah dalam apa-apa jua rancangan, even bajet 2022 ataupun bajet 2022 ni penting kita buat pemantauan dari segi pelaksanaan dan the outcome ataupun keberhasilan program-program yang dalam rancangan Malaysia ke-12 dan juga dalam bajet 2022.
YB dah sentuh a few of the things that I'd like to go a bit deeper into, tapi I think I would like to share you with the rest of the room as well. So I think we can open the floor to some of the questions. Maybe we can start with some of the things yang YB ada mentioned tadi, issues about inclusivity, about becoming a high income nation. If anyone would like to get the ball rolling.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi, salam sejahtera semua. Nama saya Amirul Abra. I'm from UiTM Shah Alam. As a student representative council, I just want to respond a bit about Keluarga Malaysia tadi tu. It's a very good opportunity after TN50 have been, wiped out from our scene. Then Keluarga Malaysia come into the scene. So I would love to see that Keluarga Malaysia are mapped or illustrated by Malaysian itself. Dia adalah satu gerakan di mana cita-cita, citra kita, aspirasi kita yang kita gambarkan bersama. Inclusive is not mapped by the leaders, is mapped by the nation and by its citizen. So dia perlu juga inklusif sebab melibatkan suara kita, bukan hanya kepada pemikiran kita punya legislative and our leaders sahaja. So that's what I would love to see about Keluarga Malaysia right now. Thank you.
Thank you, terima kasih. Saya setuju apa yang disebut tadi. Keluarga Malaysia is about a family lah. A family is not about the parents, but it's about the whole family. Adik-beradik, nenek atau keluarga, sepupu semua. It's about a family, right? Jadi dari segi ini saya setuju apa yang telah disebut tadi oleh Abra. But what's also important is sebagai satu family ni kita kena tolonglah antara satu sama lain. Kita pun kena what you call it bertolak ansur, understand the need. Dalam keluarga pun kadang adik-beradik selalu gaduh, but they get back together. So because at the end of the day, it's okay to have different opinion, different views. Tetapi we must remember we are all living in the same country. We all have the same objective. We want to see our children, your peers, to be successful for the future. We want the country to provide us that platform. Jadi walaupun apa perbeza pendapat dalam any keluarga, they always at the end of the day unite together, right? And when it comes to the important things, you are together. Itu yang pentingnya bagi saya daripada segi konsep keluarga Malaysia ni.
Okay, I believe you ada soalan juga.
Nampak sama je tag.
Yes, I'm also from UiTM. Assalamualaikum and salam keluarga Malaysia to all ada dekat sini. My name is Hafizuddin Faisal, President of Student Representative Council of UiTM. Maybe I would like macam YB sini ada mention about rancangan Malaysia ke-11 sebelum ni dan ke-12 yang related untuk belanjawan 2021. Sejujurnya lah, mungkin saya boleh kongsikan sedikit untuk belanjawan 2021 ni kurang inklusifnya kepada mahasiswa. Mungkin saya boleh kongsikan sedikit beberapa pendapat mengenai mahasiswa, khususnya untuk bantuan-bantuan kepada mahasiswa. Macam sebelum ini kita tahu dengan kerajaan sebelum ini ada bantuan khusus kepada mahasiswa untuk bantuan secara one-off. Sebenarnya bantuan one-off itu kita akan menyumbang kepada ekonomi, khususnya untuk ekonomi dan juga sebagainya. Dengan keadaan sekarang ni, kami sebagai mahasiswa mengharapkan untuk bantuan one-off ini diberikan awal kepada kami pada permulaan semester. Macam sebelum ini, untuk bantuan one-off kita diberikan kepada mahasiswa di penghujung semester. Apabila di penghujung semester, apakah keperluan dan relevannya untuk kami menggunakan bantuan itu pada at the end of the semester. So jadi mungkin harapan kami kepada pihak kerajaan untuk belanjawan 2020 ini mengumumkan untuk bantuan ini secara awal supaya kami dapat menggunakan pada awal semester. Dan yang kedua, mungkin saya boleh kaitkan di sini adalah untuk allowed internship. Dan sekarang pihak kerajaan ada menyentuh allowance internship hanya khususkan minimum RM900 kepada mahasiswa hanya di sektor kerajaan. Apa yang saya inginkan sebagai wakil mahasiswa, saya inginkan secara keseluruhan di antara sektor swasta dan juga sektor kerajaan yang melengkapi 3 keperluan asas, iaitu macam sekarang kita pun mahasiswa ada work from home. Jadi keperluan asas adalah untuk keperluan internet, allowance itu sendiri, makan dan minum dan juga allowance pergerakan pelajar. Sebab kami sebagai mahasiswa pun internship menggunakan tenaga, menggunakan keringat sendiri, bekerja seakan-akan seperti bekerja sendiri. Dan yang mungkin yang terakhir saya mungkin boleh ingin kongsikan ialah sebagai graduan mahasiswa. Saya mengharapkan supaya allowance minimum ataupun gaji minimum sebagai seorang graduan ini dikaji semula dengan bersesuaian dengan keadaan semasa. Sebab saya suka tertarik dengan nilai SDG yang pertama, iaitu kita ingin mengurangkan kadar kemiskinan di negara kita. So kita sebagai kerajaan yang prihatin, saya yakin dan percaya mungkin kita dah ada polisi sedia ada. Mungkin kita perlu menambah baik polisi yang ada ni untuk kebaikan bersama supaya 3 aspek ini dapat dilihat dalam kerajaan yang untuk khususnya kepentingan mahasiswa. Itulah sedikit pandangan daripada saya. Terima kasih.
Okay, terima kasih. Nanti saya akan bincanglah dengan Kementerian Pendidikan Tinggi, Menteri Pendidikan Tinggi mengenai perkara ini. Kerana kalau kita lihat daripada segi bantuan-bantuan yang diberikan, saya sebagai Menteri Kewangan tengok keseluruhan lah ya. Kita ada mahasiswa, ada orang OKU, kita ada miskin tegar, ya, mereka yang hilang pekerjaan. Kita punya kadar pengangguran semasa peak tu yang 5.3%. Sekarang kadar pengangguran ialah 4.6%. Alhamdulillah dah turun kerana kerajaan cuba mencipta pekerjaan. Target kita untuk mencipta pekerjaan ialah 500,000 pekerjaan, terutamanya untuk graduan dan alhamdulillah setakat ini kita telah mencapai 390,000 pekerjaan untuk rakyat Malaysia. Oleh itu kita dapat melihat kadar pengangguran telah turun kepada 4.6%. Tapi the natural rate of unemployment untuk negara kita adalah di antara 3.3 hingga 3.5%. Jadi targetnya masih ada di situ. Dari segi bantuan tunai memang kalau boleh kita nak memperbanyakkan lagi, menambahkan lagi, tetapi cadangan fiskal negara pun perlu diperhalusi ya, di mana semenjak pandemik COVID-19 ini melanda negara kita, bantuan tunai langsung, that means cash to you, to rakyat Malaysia setakat ini ialah 33 bilion ringgit ya. Tak pada negara lain dalam Asia Tenggara yang memberi sebegitu banyak duit ya. Family, anak 5, anak 6, yang macam-macam, yang mak bapak hilang pekerjaan ya. Lepas tu daripada segi kelangsungan perniagaan, kita terpaksa membantu PKS yang suffering now. I mean, some of you are business people, you know how difficult it is. We had to meruntukkan 20 bilion untuk program subsidi upah di mana kita telah menolong 330,000 syarikat dan 2.9 juta pekerja, di mana kerajaan telah memberi allowance subsidi sebanyak RM600. That means 2.9 Malaysians working today, every month RM600 is paid by the government.
Yeah, I think that's the point of what we're trying to do here as well. I'm pretty sure you bukan saja mewakili mahasiswa, tapi I'm pretty sure setiap seorang walaupun mewakili bidang-bidang masing-masing, tetapi kita semua dekat sini untuk dengar juga pandangan orang lain. Hopefully we can learn from other people and to hear what everyone else has to say. So I'm pretty sure we very much value your opinions and your grievances sebagai seorang mahasiswa. So we really appreciate that. But yeah, we've also made it a point to gather everyone from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, so that we are able to see things from a bigger point of view, as you say. But I think we can move on to the next question. Tarma, I think.
Salam sejahtera. Thank you very much, Datuk Seri, for the opportunity. My name is Tarma. I'm from Undi 18.
Yes, we know.
All right.
Very vocal of Undi 18.
All right. So I have 3 questions. One related to Undi 18, one the others not really related lah. The first one is in regards to voter education. Kita memang sudah tahu bahawa ada penambahan 5.3 juta anak muda yang akan menjadi pengundi kelak bila kalau PRU tahun depan, kalau PRU 2023 7.8 juta pengundi baru kan. Ada tak apa-apa plan untuk menambahkan perbelanjaan untuk membantu voter education contohnya kan dalam belanjawan ini? Itu pertama. Kedua adalah kita memang tahu one of the big problems of government is that there needs additional revenue to assist and do a lot of programs kan. Jadi berkaitan dengan cukai, pertama nak tanya, I know there's discussions on capital gains tax dan sebagainya kan, which personally I'm not necessarily very much in favour of, but I was wondering, have we considered land value tax antara salah satu solutions yang mungkin boleh dibawa? Itu pertama. Kedua adalah adakah kita akan buat review semula sin-tax. Contohnya tax atau cukai terhadap rokok, vape, alkohol dan sebagainya. Is that being processed at the moment? Just out of curiosity, dan adakah apa-apa polisi baru yang akan dibawa? Dan ketiga, ini berkaitan dengan environmentalism kan, sebab belia adalah juga tentang masa depan dan memang kita memang kena fikir tentang climate change kan. Mungkin ada tak apa-apa polisi baru atau dalam belanjawan untuk berbincang tentang for example ecological fiscal transfer atau polisi lain untuk membantu the environment as a whole and to combat climate change. Dan terakhir, just a suggestion, not really a question lah kan. Dari segi gaji minima, I know we've been discussing it in the news recently kan. Salah satu perkara yang saya rasa penting untuk kita pertimbangkan adalah supaya kita ada kenaikan gaji minima, that's something that might matter. But I think more relevant also, adakah kita boleh decentralize pelaksanaan gaji minima. Contohnya di bandar besar, di mana cost of living lagi tinggi, mungkin kita boleh ada a separate gaji minima untuk tempat-tempat tersebut berdasarkan data dari MOF. Could we also consider a solution like that? Sorry, banyak soalan.
Saya cuba ingat. Kalau terlupa tadi, you ingatkan.
Boleh.
I will try and go from backward lah, so lagi senang nak ingat.
Boleh.
You've
tak
got the
masalah.
gaji minima, ecological fiscal transfer, sin tax, land value tax, and as well as voter education. But I think personally, I'm a bit biased. I nak tahu pasal gaji minima.
Itu satu kajian telah dibuat oleh DOSEM dan sebenarnya di pihak kita, bawah agensi kita KWSP, Kumpulan Wawasan Pekerja, telah buat kajian juga. Begitu juga dengan Khazanah Research Institute. Betul apa yang disebut tadi, kita perlu melihat dari segi kawasan, daripada segi demografi juga. There is a concept called living wage, right? So that is a concept where is probably fairer, depending, because of course RM2,000 di setengah kawasan dan bandingkan RM2,000 di kawasan tengah-tengah bandar is different lah, right? So we need to have that purchasing power parity measurement across the different area. But of course the living wage is something we will look at and have looked at. We have done the study. Tapi dari segi implementationnya kita akan mengkaji lebih banyak. We need more time to do that. In fact, daripada segi PJK telah naik sekarang kepada 2,208, right? So that is the new PJK lah. But I think your point is 2,208 is different for different area. Sometimes it's already high for certain areas, kan? Especially when the support system is there. So it's something we need to do. I agree. Timing is key, but when also with respect to the timing lah. So an idea we would definitely pursue. Yang keduanya mengenai
Ecological fiscal transfer. So we're very concerned about climate change.
Yes, we agree. In fact, the semasa budget 2021 was the first time budget in our history that we linked our initiative to the SDG. As you know, we are part of the Paris Agreement that we signed in 2015, where we want to embrace the 17 SDG by 2030. Right. So when we look at what we want to do in 2022, budget 2022, pasukan kita telah we map out all the initiative kita ke 17 SDG ni. Then of course, an issue of sustainability is important, right? We need to start thinking of carbon tax. We still need to thinking of how do we, save our planet, like you said, right? Every time we are all here just borrowing the planet, for the future, for our children, right? So, in that sense, it is going to be quite a key theme of the budget. If you look at the budget statement, it is there, right? Sustainability. It is something that even our Honourable Prime Minister is embracing. Even last discussion di Cabinet, kita telah membuat keputusan no more plastic mineral water bottle in the whole ministry, in the whole government, and we have asked for the PBT and the states also to take. That is one example. So you can buang all the plastiknya.
So macam mana nak minum air nanti?
Minum dalam gelas lah, pakai ni. So it's safe because plastic is, of course, not sustainable lah. So that's an example. So you jug air, tuang lah, macam biasa. Okay. So that's how to minum lah. Lagi tu.
Then we've got sin tax.
Yes, sin tax. So I mean, of course, isu pencukaian ni agak sensitif kerana ia akan melibatkan implikasi dasar yang besar, and it will affect so many. Macam we Kementerian Kewangan sedang mengkaji semua. You mentioned capital gains tax tadi. I know there are pros and cons. Other countries, more developed countries dah buat. Tetapi unfortunately kita berada di dalam kawasan di Asia dan terutamanya di Asia Tenggara, negara lain tak buat. So you don't want to be the only country doing it, right? And then you'll be not competitive. Example lah. Not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying that we have to look at our ecosystem lah. you talk about that land tax kan tadi, land value tax also something that we can look at is that's the people asking us to look at inheritance tax, windfall tax. Of course, sin tax pun ada pros and cons kerana kalau kita lihat daripada segi tax cukai kita kepada rokok dan sebagainya, in fact vape belum lagi dicukai ya kerana vape is illegal. We can't tax something that is illegal. We will have to study all options. Of course, the biggest elephant in the room is consumption tax, right? Something that you didn't mention, which is seen as fairer, more kurang ketirisannya. Kalau kita lihat semua negara telah Indonesia, Singapura, of course all developed markets. Kerana ketirisan SST itu ada, ya. Itu satu. As a youth, you want to, golongan belia ni kena fikir about the long term, how do government revenue be enough to support not just our government operating expenditure, which is important, tetapi the development energy, pembelajaran pembangunan. Pembelajaran pembangunan itu penting for the economy, but more importantly for the development of the country. Tapi you kena bayangkan kerajaan ni macam syarikat lah. Some of you, I notice the CV, you run your own company. Kalau kita tak ada hasil, macam mana kita nak buat investment for the future? Then that's one of the. So cukai is a very important part of the budget. Kita sedang mengkaji.
Lastly, voter education.
Yes, voter education. Yes. Ada perbincangan sekarang di dua peringkat SPR dengan Kementerian Pendidikan sedang membuat koordinasi mengenai peruntukan yang diperlukan mengenai undi 18. Undi 18 it will start next year, and if there is election, be it state or general, then it will be done. That was a commitment and is part of the agreement anyway between semasa ditandatangani memorandum persefahaman transformasi politik di antara kerajaan dan juga Pakatan Harapan dan juga pihak-pihak pembangkang yang lain. Kalau kita lihat dari segi education that is required, I think is must, my personal view. And I think the view of my colleagues also is something that we need to do. But now we want to see the program. How do we do? Because golongan belia ni, kalau I don't know, this is my personal view. You cannot have a very BTN kind of format nak mengajar. You cannot be a one way. It has to be done in a different setting, so that people understand about Undi 18. This is key, right? It's a big change, you like it or not, and like you said, ramai yang akan mengundi tahun depan ataupun even more tahun 2022. So they need to understand the implication is the right under the federal constitution that cannot be taken away, right? This voting, but it's also a responsibility, and you have to be accountable to what you do. Whatever it is, this is democracy, right? So that's why Undi 18 education is very, very important because they need to understand the implication of their decision. Every vote counts, right? So that's my view lah.
Okay, anyone else? Kita ada dalam 30 minit lagi, so.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Pendekkan jawapan saya.
So, Assalamualaikum and good morning. So, my name is Nur Zarifah binti Saleh and today I'm representing Malaysia for Sila. So, my questions is, I would like to ask on the coordinations and support
Yes.
for the next belanjawans on NGOs. Because since now, NGOs has been helping the government in many ways as a
Sure.
grassroots actor. So, some were even sent to overseas, such as Afghanistan, Syria, as a fact finders. So I would like to ask on how far do you plan and considering this sector in your next belanjawan?
Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a very good question kerana kalau kita lihat dari segi polisi kerajaan, penyampaian tu ataupun delivery will not be, there will be challenges lah. Kalau tak ada NGO yang menolong kita, banyak program-program tu tak tercapai. Even program baku makanan, program menolong the different groups, terutamanya orang asli dan ada even when we want to save the tigers. I mean, this is all we work with the NGO. Kita melalui Yayasan Hasanah membuat keputusan supaya kita memperkasakan NGO kita supaya dapat menolong penyampaian kerajaan. Because we can't do it alone. We need a whole of nation approach. Begitu juga dengan social enterprise. I think is something that we want to support. Social enterprise di mana at least they can stand on their own. The NGOs can stand on their own rather than just reliant on support daripada pihak-pihak tertentu. Jadi I think NGO is very important, critical part of the budget. Kita akan buat pengumuman mengenai ini. Semalam pun dalam Majlis Pengurusan Negara NGO telah memberi cadangan bagaimana kerajaan bersama-sama NGO dapat bekerjasama dengan lebih erat supaya penyampaian itu lebih bermakna kepada mereka yang memerlukan.
Okay. Oh, memang betul ringkas.
Ringkas.
Okay, but that's
Dia
great.
dah kinda dia kata, panjang sangatlah jawapannya.
Yeah. Because we got a lot more to get to,
Yeah,
so
tak sedar.
let's go on to the next question.
Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dengan menyebut nama Allah yang Maha Pemurah lagi Maha Penyayang. Assalamualaikum YB and everyone. Nama saya Aiman,
E-sport.
founder untuk Team Hub E-sport Club.
Yes.
So I have 4 questions. 2 are the general for the budget and 2 for e-sport industry. So we all know that budget akan dibentangkan oleh YB pada 29
InsyaAllah.
Oktober.
Yeah.
And rakyat nanti apa yang kerajaan Malaysia boleh tawarkan dalam bajet 2022 untuk tempoh 12 bulan akan datang selepas kerajaan baru berkonsep Keluarga Malaysia di bawah pimpinan Yang Amat Berbahagia Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob pada Ogos yang lalu. So my first question is, apa tumpuan kerajaan bagi membawa keluar Malaysia daripada kemulut pandemik, memulih kehidupan dan mata pencarian terutama orang muda pada pasca pandemik? Soalan kedua, adakah kerajaan akan buka lebih banyak peluang pekerjaan, the job opportunities, berorientasikan pendigitalan untuk golongan muda yang hilang pekerjaan? Moving on to the e-sports. So, as you know, perkembangan e-sukan di Malaysia dan di dunia especially in Malaysia, is progressive right now. And
Yes.
we all know e-sport is not just playing games. E-sports are giving job opportunities, and it's a new industry in the Malaysia. E-sports are have a lot of job opportunities, such as graphic designer, videographer, editor, banyak lagi lah. Even jurulatih pun is a job in e-sports. So in e-sports in Malaysia, they started peringkat tempatan anjuran kelab. And now e-sukan telah mendapat tempat di Sukan Malaysia, SUKMA, in Perak 2018. So e-sport right now are in the good landasan and they are moving forward. We all know that it's going to be in the Olympic in 2024 nanti.
Betul.
And pandemic COVID-19 actually is a rahmat for e-sport industry.
Betul.
It's a rahmat for e-sport industry. Why is it? It is a game changer yang melonjakkan industri e-sukan di dunia. Dan bahang ini turut berlaku di Malaysia. So menurut laporan firma penyelidikan pemasaran Newzoo, the industry e-sukan menjana pendapatan sebanyak 2.1 billion for the last year and merekodkan jumlah penonton seramai 320 million from all over the world. So untuk dua soalan in e-sports dalam Bentangan Belanjawan 2021, which is last year, kerajaan Malaysia telah memperuntukkan 15 million bagi pembangunan e-sukan. Tetapi apa yang kurang di situ kita tak tahu 15 million tu distribute ke mana. We all know you went to the e-sports, but there's no people that come out. Where did it go? The money. And
Good point.
how about this year? Bagaimana untuk tahun ni lah punya belanjawan e-sports in 2022? And number 2 is, adakah peruntukan ini akan bertambah selari pengembangan kemajuan e-sukan di Malaysia? So that's all for me. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Saya jawab soalan e-sport tu dulu. Memang betul, tahun lepas kita telah memberi peruntukan sebanyak 15 juta untuk e-sport. In fact, kita naikkan sebelum itu lebih is less than that. Sama ada akan ditingkatkan lagi peruntukan tu tahun-tahun ni, kita kena tunggulah dulu. But what your point on the importance of this sector in sport is betul, is key. Kita memang dah recognize lah, memberi pengikrafan bagaimana e-sport ni adalah salah satu industri sukan. Sebenarnya sukan ni kerana people always think that it is about activity dan sebagainya. It's actually an industry by itself. Daripada segi pakaian, coaching, training, it's the whole ecosystem. It's a business sector, right? So it is basically the reason I say that is that means dia akan contribute kepada ekonomi juga. Selain daripada looking at people playing badminton, football, but it's actually there is a whole ecosystem here. Sama juga dengan e-sport. In fact, e-sport has been accelerated lah because of pandemic COVID-19 ni, bukan saja di Malaysia, seluruh dunia we have seen. So e-sport, Aiman, I think don't worry, ini satu sektor yang within our side focus, and dalam perbincangan saya dengan Menteri Kebudayaan dan Sukan yang baru dan juga yang lama sebelum ini, Rizal Marikan dan sekarang Peja, memang masih lagi mereka terus memberi fokus kepada ini.
The next was about cipta peluang pekerjaan, terutamanya ada fokus emphasis on digitalisasi.
Digitalisasi ini have been accelerated by the pandemic COVID-19 seperti saya sebut tadi, and also the way people doing, the nature of jobs has also changed. Di Malaysia ni gig economy saja represents 25% daripada jobs out there. That means about 400,000 people are doing gig economy. And gig economy is mostly related to the advancement of digitalization, kan? E-hailing terutamanya lah. Jadi di sini kita sebagai kerajaan perlu memperhalusi lah apa yang akan berlaku in the next 3 to 5 years. I think this 25% can even be more. So we are looking at macam mana, what's their safety net. Di sini kita bersama-sama Perkeso dan KWSP, because in the informal workers atau the gig economy ni, dia tak buat caruman kepada KWSP ataupun Perkeso, ya, di mana kalau apa-apa jadi untuk they are not insured lah, one, and the other one is they don't have saving for the future. So kita ada skim Air Saraan ni, di mana kerajaan telah memberi peruntukan sebanyak 50 juta untuk semua pekerja-pekerja gig economy for them to start to start saving for the future and start also insuring themselves, ya, satu ya. And then ada GLOW daripada MDEC, kita buat peruntukan 25 juta di mana all these freelancers, ya, they offer their services online dan dapat peruntukan daripada kita untuk start their business. So basically my point here is, dari segi pekerjaan ni memang saya dah sebut tadi, pengangguran telah turun, kita telah berjaya mencipta lebih banyak pekerjaan. Tetapi we need to look at the new world. This gig economy is you are running your own business. I mean yourself, you can see that the people now are like contract workers or entrepreneurs themselves. Jadi di sini when we need to redefine what is pekerjaan lah. Jadi so we want to see how we can stimulate this. We have macam-macam program sekarang. Kita ada juga program di bawah BSN, di mana kita menolong belia entrepreneurs. We give up to 50,000 loan to help all the entrepreneurs to start. This is for the belia lah.
Wabi, a bit about gig economy. During the pandemic, we've seen gig economy. Many young people resorted to the gig economy. Ramai yang terpaksa jadi rider just to get, a source of income. How do you see this? Does this resemble a healthy economy to you? How do you add value to these workers? Bukan nak berkata rider ni kerja yang tak ada value, but they also need upskilling and reskilling.
Yes,
so
correct.
How do you see this?
Yeah, so there are two perspectives there. One is, nothing wrong with what e-hailing is doing, but also it's a bridge sometimes, right? When you want to do 2, 3, 4 things at one time, the younger generation, they boleh balance many things. But your point on reskilling, upskilling is a very pertinent point lah, point yang penting. Dia disebabkan digitalisasi ni juga, kita jangan lupa mereka yang sedang bekerja sekarang. Dia memerlukan upskilling dan reskilling. Kan? Ya, di sini kerajaan telah memperuntukkan semasa pandemik ini 2 bilion ringgit, ya, untuk reskilling dan upskilling untuk semua bidang. Ya, but what we've seen is people need to understand that it is going to be a different world lah out there. You all, masa saya baru graduate, is different. Kita tahu apa nak jadi, nak kerja ni pekerjaan dan sebagainya. Kan? Your time may be different lah, and their time, different time kan. Their time is even more challenging lah, because things are so dynamic. Things dulu tukar dalam 5 tahun, sekarang tukar dalam masa 1 tahun dah tukar. So that's why I agree with what you said just now. Even 3 years ago, as recent as 3 years ago, or maybe 5 years, like in this case for Malaysia, maybe 3 years. For Malaysia, 3 years. Do you think that there was a Grab? Kan? Tak ada kan? Dia tak terfikir ada Grab Food, for example. Food Panda, ada tak terfikir? Tak ada kan? So you don't know now. And tomorrow someone will come up with another invention. Right? And all these inventions are coming from the younger generation, satu. And they also are trendsetter. They are not just berjaya, but they are also a trendsetter. So I cannot predict anymore. That's my point.
Cannot predict the future, but hopefully we'll be able to keep up with the times and
We have to keep up. And these are, your generation, sorry.
yes.
Assalamualaikum dan
Waalaikumsalam.
selamat sejahtera semua. My name is Muhammad Izzual Rifai bin Badrul Syam. Saya merupakan founder Bakery Barukat Enterprise.
Founder apa?
Bakery Barukat Enterprise, Homemade Bakery.
Okay.
So saya ingin mencadangkan khusus untuk peniaga-peniaga kecil lah.
Okay.
Yang merupakan macam saya peniaga kecil juga. Saya tak pasti yang kerajaan yang pernah buat ataupun tidak. Saya ingin mencadangkan bahawa kerajaan perlu wujudkan satu persatuan ataupun NGO yang boleh khas untuk peniaga-peniaga kecil ni, yang boleh belajar tentang pasal marketing, finance ataupun management. Sebab tak semua orang berminat untuk sambung belajar di college.
Betul,
kan? Untuk peniaga-peniaga kecil lah, yang peniaga bazar dan sebagainya. So saya ingin mencadangkan lah untuk
I think berbalik
Terima kasih.
kepada training. Thank you.
Yeah,
Dia berbalik kepada
that's
training.
good cadangan lah. Tapi we will support that cadangan. In fact ada, tapi we need to expand it lah. Apa yang disebut tadi. Setuju sangat. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Hi, okay.
Yes, silakan.
Hi, I prefer to stand actually.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Ah.
hi, my name is Aisha. I'm basically an entrepreneur from My Garden Grocer. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
say My Garden Grocer, what do you guys think? It's an agricultural field, right? So in my business, we sell tilapia fish, we sell fresh duck eggs. It's
Fresh what?
Fresh duck eggs. Itik.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
duck eggs, okay.
So
Your
be-
number later.
Sure. Oh my god. So I just want to tell you guys, like, you know, before my problems with it and my suggestions, I just want to tell you that what's interesting about our shameless plug, like what's interesting about our business is that it's basically from the concept of fresh from farm to table.
Yes.
So meaning to say that when
Yes,
you
yes.
order, it's literally fresh from the farm. There's no like supplier, there's no like middleman, right? So it's really fresh. We deliver to you, okay? But during the pandemic, I'm not sure because this business, I've started this business like memang in the year 2021, very early. And the main problem with it is that there's no price regulation for duck feed or fish feed, right? So you have price regulation for end users, but you don't have price regulation for wholesalers. And I think that's right. You of course you're laughing, so you
Because
know
I
it's
know,
a-
I hear the same problem
Yeah,
because dia ada
yeah.
macam tension between MAFI dengan KBD and HCP lah.
Yeah,
That's why, because
yeah.
peternak ayam, sebab kata harga kan orang komplain harga ayam dah naik.
Yeah.
But actually kesianlah peternak ayam because harga ayam naik kerana satu is supply
Yeah.
issue. Kerana and then of course there's a demand issue also, demand dan semasa krisis tu harga the feed dah naik and the
Yeah.
feed is always imported. Right? So
That is
and then
true.
the logistic cost was went up during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right? So all this dia nak, tapi dia tak boleh transfer kepada pengguna because kalau tidak rakyat marah.
Yeah.
You know, tapi that's why I say you all have to look at everybody's position. I mean that's why as a youth I really hope you all be open and sometimes look at macam your problem. Tapi you all sometimes think oh kenapa harga naik? Tapi kerana then these people cannot survive, right?
Yeah, so like just for example, right, if I may, so for example, in February 2021, in this year, harga dedak itik is 110 ringgit for 50 kg, and we have 1,800 itik di ladang. So that means every week we have to spend for 6 bags, and that is about 800 ringgit. So for 1 month, our cash flow is 16,000 ringgit. So that begs the question. What's our break-even price for one telur, right? One telur is 75 cents. But how much are retailers asking? They're asking for 60 cents. So we can't even make profit from just by buying the dedak itik itself. We also have manpower to pay for. So I'm asking for like, if there can be a price regulation for wholesalers like us for dedak itik, especially for fish feed. We also sell ikan tilapia if you guys are interested in it.
Tapi I'm surprised because itik, I think lah, the itik is more, is not as regulated as the ayam dengan telur dan sebagainya. So you can be able to increase, tak boleh?
So a lot of like retailers, they want to sell cheap to their consumers. So they sell 60 cents for one telur itik. But us, we of course like want to sell at least 70 cents, right? But we
Yes.
can't because a lot of these people, so a lot of like big clients lah, like for example supermarkets, they want to sell cheap to their clients and they want to make profit out of us. So at the end of the day, we always have to sell cheap and we cannot make profit. It has been 1 year, but we still cannot make profit. So I'm suggesting if there cannot be a price regulation, at least there can be some subsidies from the government to take care of us. Because, for example, the next problem is about agriculture grants. So I'm not sure if, like, maybe I'm not aware of all the grants in Malaysia for agriculture punya sector. But for example, like there are agriculture grants like 20,000, 50,000, right? But however, the one problem with these grants is that it's basically like one-off. Okay, so I'm not sure like if there are like not one-off ke tak kan, but basically if you look at my calculation, the cash flow for my company, 16K for dedak itik sahaja, 16,000. How can the one-off cater for for example, if I get 20,000 one-off, how can it cater for 1 month? Or, like it's very because I feel like there can be suggestions. For example, like maybe you monitor the company's performance and maybe like, oh, okay, if this company is going good, maybe you can like give more money for these companies, right? Because I'm a really new business. It's a new business, and I know that I represent a lot of agriculture people in this field. Yeah, that is my main problem for my business. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know you mentioned there's a lot of stakeholders here, but can there be more done?
Yeah, I know. I understand because this is something I think every businesses face. Especially with the startup lah. I think your scale tu not big enough to reduce to enjoy the economies of scale, right? But it is we will try and see how we can support the young entrepreneurs, especially yang baru mula. I think you need some sokongan. Then because bila dah besar tu, of course you will be able to then compete and even have a direct access.
Of course, we try to buy the dedak itik in volumes, but I think as today I'm representing a lot of like farmers as a whole, and I know a lot of people cannot afford it in volumes. It involves hundreds of thousands of ringgit in one cash flow transaction. So that's why I'm just, trying to say that on average, farmers spend 16,000 ringgit if they have 1,000 over ducks to feed, and the break-even price is not even going to be covered by retailers' price. Because a lot of, for example, retailers, right, even if like pasar kecil ke apa kan, a lot of them have cartels already. So meaning to say that they already have a lot of people like giving them this price. And when I, as a new business owner, would want to give my price, they would be like, no. They basically bully us lah. They're like, no, we want lesser. So yeah, in the end, I think I represent a lot of like businesses who are being bullied right now because we are new, we're SME. So we really hope that there's coverage and acknowledgement by the government to cater for agriculture businesses.
We will. Okay, we will look
thank
into
you so
it.
much.
Thank you for sharing your challenges.
Okay, so let's keep the questions a bit short sebab
Okay,
we don't want
selamat pagi YB Senator. Saya ada beberapa soalan. Yang pertama berkenaan dengan penyakit jarang jumpa. Kita tahu di seluruh dunia ada 7,000 lebih penyakit jarang jumpa dan di Malaysia sendiri ada 700 penyakit jarang jumpa. Dan perkara ini jarang sekali disentuh oleh kerajaan maupun pertubuhan-pertubuhan yang sedia ada di Malaysia lah. So kita tengok, kita lihat antara penyakit jarang jumpa, rare disease yang jadi lebih serius di Malaysia adalah lysosomal disease. Untuk rawatan lysosomal disease sahaja, LSD, diperlukan hampir 1 juta untuk dapatkan satu suntikan. Jadi dekat Malaysia setakat ini masih ada 12 orang yang sedang menunggu mendapatkan rawatan lysosomal disease lah, LSD. So apa inisiatif kerajaan untuk membantu golongan rare disease ni lah. Dan selain daripada lysosomal disease, ada juga disease yang lain, contoh Sotos, Waardenburg disease ataupun Angelman syndrome. Banyak lagi yang memerlukan rawatan, insentif dan tenaga jurupulih ataupun kemudahan fasiliti yang limited di Malaysia disebabkan kita punya pakar genetik untuk rare disease ni hanya 14 sahaja. So disebabkan kekurangan ini menyebabkan mereka terpaksa membayar lebih ataupun terpaksa keluar negara. So apa tindakan kerajaan untuk bantu golongan rare disease ni? Itu soalan pertama. Yang kedua adalah berkenaan dengan period poverty. Kita tahu period poverty ni sedang berlaku dan kita kadang-kadang tak sedar benda tu berlaku mungkin di jiran kita ataupun family kita sendiri. Ada kalanya pelajar sanggup tak pergi sekolah sebab di period dan sebagainya, dan ada juga wanita-wanita di luar sana sanggup hamil supaya mengelakkan mereka period supaya sebab tak ada duit nak beli sanitary punya barang-barang dan sebagainya. So apa tindakan kerajaan untuk bantu golongan-golongan yang menghadapi masalah kemiskinan had ini dari segi untuk beli pad, untuk beli menstrual cup dan lain-lain lah. Dan yang ketiga adalah berkenaan dengan EV dengan BEV. Kita tahu kerajaan dah mula bagi perhatian kepada EV, satu benda yang cukup baik, tapi bagi saya benda tu kita dah lambat sedikit sebab EV dengan BEV ni dekat Singapore by 2040 dah mula diperkasakan. Ada ICE akan diberhentikan. Even di Thailand 2035 pun ICE diberhentikan, EV dengan BEV akan diperkasakan. So apa tindakan kerajaan untuk kita speed the race dekat ASEAN lah untuk bidang ni.
Before that, maybe we can get another
question then we
question as well. Boleh?
Okay.
Assalamualaikum YB. Saya Haris, Marketing Director, Wakil Kilang Pembuatan Halal JMP, iaitu JM Cosmetic Industry di Ceras, Kuala Lumpur. Anak muda masa kini kan, dia terlalu taksub dengan produk international yang kita tak tahu dari segi keabsahan status halal, ingredient dan yang digunakan. So kami dalam usaha untuk memberi pendedahan bahawa produk lokal juga terbukti mempunyai formula terkini hasil kajian daripada universiti-universiti tempatan, sebab kita ada collaboration dengan universiti tempatan untuk keluarkan formulation, ingredients yang berkualiti tinggi juga. Tetapi perkara ini menjadi sukar sekiranya tiada inisiatif daripada kerajaan lah untuk membantu kami SME memberi awareness kepada anak muda bahawa yang produk tempatan pun dah setanding dengan international. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Maybe we can go back to first rare diseases.
The rare diseases, yes.
14 experts in the country.
Yes, I know. We discussed this before dengan Kementerian Kesihatan dan sekarang of course Yang Berhormat KJ pun is aware of this. Kerana dari segi peruntukan tu dua kementerian yang paling besar dalam belanjawan dalam apa-apa belanjawan lah. Peruntukan kepada Kementerian Kesihatan dan Kementerian Pendidikan. These are the two major peruntukan. Jadi I'm glad you raised that point. Memang there is a room for us to expand, and because it's not about allocation, actually it's about expertise, kan? But it takes time to get the expertise. But we will look into that. Thank you kerana cadangan. Yang kedua.
Next was about what was it? I believe period poverty.
Period poverty. Good that you raised that. Kerana semasa perbincangan kita dengan dibat urus kita dengan the certain groups, this is actually the third time this issue has been raised. Kerana isu ni sebenarnya isu besar, terutamanya di kalangan setengah kumpulan lah. And we are going to look at it. Peruntukan tu ada, cuma that's why the execution, kerja dengan NGO dan sebagainya. But it is a focus. We're going to focus more.
I think we can move on to product tempatan. You mentioned EV, BV.
EV, EV. So EV, yes. Better late than never. I admit that kita perlu lebih cepat untuk catch up, right? But we are announcing. I think MITI pun announcing in the budget also ada berbagai inisiatif mengenai this sector. We have to catch up. Doesn't mean we will not be able to, but it's better late than never. But we have to move faster lah, right? To catch up. So that's important. It is important part, and it links back to the SDG, links back to sustainability. You know, it also will help me save on my subsidy minyak because people will. But at the end of the day, it's about creating the ecosystem, right? For this. The issue about the barangan produk tempatan, terutamanya the new ones lah. I think setengah produk tempatan tu successful, cuma yang baru-baru yang baru nak start, they will have challenges. I agree, and banyaknya golongan belia lah yang baru mulakan this product. Kita dapat lihat marketing. Actually, to be fair, the marketing Malaysian marketing is quite good. It's about gaining the trust yang benda tu okey ke tak, kan? Because kita dapat tengok kalau Malaysia ni market produk asing bagus. It's not about marketing. I learned that Malaysian marketers are one of the best marketers. They can market anyone's product. Tapi they themselves say, tapi kadang-kadang nak market Malaysian product ni susah sikit. So jadi I think we need to invest a bit more. Of course, government intervention is required. That's why beli barangan Malaysia. Kita ada procurement, kita make sure that we support the local industry dan sebagainya. But I think we also need to inculcate more success stories, more trend setting stories, supaya kita bukan saja barangan Malaysia ni digunakan oleh kalangan rakyat Malaysia, tapi boleh kita ekspor juga, right? So I agree. I think we need to do more on this beli barangan Malaysia, especially produk-produk yang baru ni, supaya kita dapat, because at the end of the day is Malaysia's name is going to go out there once it's
Salam sejahtera and selamat pagi. My name is Peng Han and I'm Majlis Perwakilan Pelajar from University Putra Malaysia, and I'm an undergraduate student. So I have two questions today. My first question is, given that the unemployment rate in Malaysia jumped to 4.8% in June 2021, so what would be the Malaysia's job strategy from the Ministry of Finance perspective to improve employment opportunities for the youths, especially for university undergraduates who enter an extremely competitive job market, which is further exacerbated by the pandemic? And my second question is, tahap cari kewangan di Malaysia is not super high, and we have a lot of room to improve. So aside from the existing programs in Malaysia right now to overcome this financial literacy problem, because I also founded a financial literacy club in UPM. So I would like to know, are there any programs aside from the existing programs like AKPK and Malaysian Financial Planning Council? Moving forward, will there be any other programs or financial schemes and initiatives that will further help alleviate this financial literacy problem? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay,
Can start with the jobs market.
Yeah, so the jobs market, yes, you quoted 4.8% in June. Alhamdulillah, it's gone down to lower than that, 4.6% in August. It touched peak in May last year at 5.3%. And I mentioned just now, our unemployment rate of the last 10 years before 2020 was around 3 to 3.5%. So that's our NAIRU lah, ataupun our national rate of unemployment. So what are we doing? The Prime Minister himself chairs the National Employment Council. The Secretary is the Ministry of Finance, because jobs cuts across all ministries and agencies in the government, and see how we can help. That's why we targeted job creation this year alone, up to 500,000 or 500,000 jobs, of which to date, end of September, 390,000 jobs have been created. But the key to this issue is not so much job creation, right? Because what you said just now is correct. It is about youth unemployment, because youth unemployment is in the double digit, right? It's double, or sometimes actually nearly triple the unemployment rate in this country, because we are producing graduates, but are we producing graduates that get jobs, right? So there is a job mismatch, right? We are now focusing a lot more on TVET, because technical and vocational training is key. You look at the success in Germany, if you look at the success in Japan, and they really embrace TVET, because the future does mean that you need to match the requirement of the industry and the graduates. We cannot just produce academically sound graduates, but not relevant to the needs of the industry. So that is one thing that we need to address. I think the budget and the RMK12 have to address this job mismatch for the undergraduates. And of course, more and more also undergraduates, some of you doing entrepreneurial work, which is good, right? So it doesn't mean creating of jobs alone, but also creating entrepreneurs among the fresh graduates, especially in the more digital world. So that is something that we need to look at. And on the financial literacy side, I've just launched yesterday, actually, the Financial Literacy Month by Bank Negara. But you mentioned AKPK is one of the keys agency that's looking at financial literacy under the Bank Negara, supported by all the financial banks, financial institutions in the country. But this goes a long way, because financial literacy actually starts at home, right? You know, our problem is we try and educate too late, in my view, right? So it is a subject. When I was in CIMB, I actually went down to many universities to start. We developed this financial literacy program. We went down to the ground and meet students. But we realized that it's not done enough, right? Because it's not good to do at the university student level. It actually has to go even at the, lepas SRP, lepas, at that level. Lepas, now PMR, SRP my time. So lepas PMR dan sebagainya, PT3, is it?
I zaman PMR.
You zaman PMR.
Kita kan sama dinosaur.
Yeah, sorry. So my point is start earlier, because it is a major issue. people a lot of things don't understand, especially during this crisis, even more we can see, because the lack of financial planning, a lot of people suffer because of that, right? So those that shouldn't have suffer also because they didn't do proper financial planning. But those yang suffer yang lain itu different reasons lah. Right? So I agree with you. We think more emphasis, maybe budget 2022. I will take that into consideration. Thank you for raising that point. I think government should do more also. Thank you for that.
Government should do more. I think that's what I can take away from this at least.
Yes.
But thank you so much. I wish we could all hear from you, but unfortunately that's all the time we have. But thank you so much.
Terima kasih.
Thank you. That was great.
Terima kasih.
Thank you to
Terima kasih
everyone
semua.
for sharing such great questions. Really, everything that I think we wanted to hear, and hopefully these are not just it's not just rhetoric.
No,
We
some
hope
ideas
that-
I'm going to take into account and then put emphasis and quote this meeting in the budget.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much again. This was great, and yeah, we hope to see a youth-centric, inclusive budget 2022.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah. We will do our best to include the youth centric in the budget.
Yeah.
It will be people centric.